Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on Spanning the Need. I'm your host, Anthony Spano. Tonight, we're going to talk about life, politics, and the county during these difficult times. To do that, we have the chair of the Mahoning County Commissioners, Commissioner Dave Ditzler. Dave, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you asking me to be on, and I'm happy to do it.
Not a problem. How are you doing? I know you got a lot of different moving parts.
Yeah, it's definitely a hectic time right now. I mean, between the COVID, the pandemic, the election going on, just trying to keep up and make sure that all the residents of Mahoning County are getting the services they need, and trying to keep up with the COVID, the CARES dollars coming in, and trying to distribute them, in a manner that best serves the residents of Mahoning County. So just so much has been going on. It's really been a hectic time. You really have to draw on all of our staff and our support staff and our other elected officials, and everybody's been doing an amazing job working together.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit of that, of what you guys have been doing behind the scenes and what's really happening. Dave, not many people may or may not know you, but tell a little bit about yourself, how you got started in public service, and kind of up to where we are today.
Well, it's kind of a strange story. I'm 62 years old. I graduated from Austintown Fitch in 1976. Out of high school, I actually started going to YSU in pre-law, and I got a bunch of us in high school in June of our senior year. We heard that they were hiring in the Camel Works at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and we chose to all blow off a day of school and drive down and fill out applications, all of us who were 18 years old. So we went down and filled them out, and I graduated in June, started to go to YSU, and then before the year ended, I got called from Youngstown Sheet and Tube to go start working in the seamless hot mill. Well, at the time, I was working for $1.65 an hour, minimum wage.
Oh, wow.
at Cornersburg Pizza in Cornersburg. And they called me to come to work at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, making $5 an hour. So it was like dying and going to heaven. I thought, well, I'll go to YSU, I'll go to night school, I'll start working, make money. And back then, you could literally pay your way through college. It was about $18 a quarter hour. So if you took full-time hours, you could go to a quarter for like $240. It was for a quarter of YSU. So I started to go to YSU, started to work at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and I was working 3 turns and going to school at night, and every third week I tried to trade turns, to get on a day turn or midnight. I started working steady midnights while I went to school, and I actually was going for pre-law. And I spent about 3 years going to night school in pre-law. And then, long story short, I got promoted to a hot mill expediter, ordering parts. They asked me to go into sales. I started going through some sales training. So I got a Youngstown Sheet and Tube employee scholarship, and I ended up finishing a business degree with accounting and economics, and ended up going into I was going into the sales program at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, and that was after Black Monday, where a lot of the people, 20,000 people lost their jobs. And the only department left still running at Youngstown Sheet and Tube was the seamless hot mill. So I continued to work at the seamless hot mill because the union contract that I was in had a consent decree in it that you had department seniority if you were hired in the specific department. And my department kept working, and I literally worked from 76 to 1983 there until they idled the plant and shut down. So at that time, I finished my college degree. I ended up going to work for a company in Warren, Ohio called Thomas Steel. I worked my way through Thomas Steel. I started out really as a process engineer there, and I worked for a couple of years until I got into the sales end of it. And when I left there, I was the director of sales, managing a division of about $50 million in sales over about 23 people. And my specific responsibility was predominantly selling brass to the ammunition industry. So my customers are Winchester, Federal, Remington. I had a couple other large customers that were Texas Instruments, Garlock Bearing. And, so it ended up being quite a career. I left there when I was still trustee in Austintown and went to a competitor of ours in Chicago, a company called American Nickeloid, and I was hired as the global manager of sales there. Collectively, I negotiated contracts with probably a dozen Fortune 500 companies. When I was in Thomas Steel, we were based out of Europe. So our headquarters was in Dusseldorf, Germany, and Moyden, Holland. So I was in Europe quite a bit. I was in Asia quite a bit, negotiating contracts with Texas Instruments in Belgium and in Korea. So I got a great opportunity to travel and, go abroad and get a very good feeling for cultures in other countries and, and as well as throughout, most every state in the United States. So it really gave me a lot of good opportunities.
Any regrets not going into law school?
No, not really. Because the funny thing is that when I was finishing school, a lot of my friends that were going to law school, that actually completed law school, they a couple of them that actually completed pre-law, they got their undergraduate, and they were doing different things, trying to get jobs, and they were working as probation officers, and they were starting out making like $8,500 a year in the probation officer field, and and I thought with a pre-law degree, it's going to be pretty difficult if I don't go to law school and finish and pass the bar to be able to make a decent living. And, it was kind of in our blood. We were steel town back in the 70s, and back then it was booming. So, I made a great living for a lot of years and got to do things that, I couldn't have ever been able to do on my own. My wife, I built so many miles up flying that I would fly my wife over to Europe free while I was already there for work. And we would get an opportunity to spend, a week in Venice, a week in Germany, a week in the Netherlands, a week in Paris.
You're making me jealous.
And the only thing it cost us was our food and our hotel. And, so to be able to spend a week in Paris for less than $1,000 is, pretty amazing, because I was already there. My wife flew for free. And, and when I flew back, I already had my ticket. So, it was a great learning experience, and really opened my eyes to the world, because prior to that, I really was never one that wanted to go on vacation. My thought process was pretty functional, that why would I spend $1,000 on a vacation when I could buy a couch that lasts 10 years? So
that's a different thought process. That's
those
I think
were
like that sometimes.
Those were, the way that I thought. And but once I got over to Europe and was doing things that, that most people don't get an opportunity to do, I'd be over there, and I thought, geez, it'd be nice if my wife was with me to be able to share this, so it really changed my outlook on things.
Well, so now you're doing all that, you're traveling, you're at work. Have you lived in Austintown pretty much your whole entire life?
Yes, I was born on Bainbridge in Austintown, and my family moved to Ayrshire by way of Lexington Place. One stop in between while they were building a house on Ayrshire. And then when I was 18 years old, I moved out and moved into Westchester Square Apartments and lived in Westchester Square, bought a house on Berkey.
Everyone has lived in Westchester somehow, shape, or form.
I'm telling you. Yep. How true. I gutted the house on Berkey and, moved in there and bought a piece of property on New Road against Meander. Actually, I bought a piece of property in 1986 for $9,000, 3 acres.
Oh, wow.
And it happened to be on the railroad tracks, which is now the bike path. So I really didn't have an inkling to golf or things like that. Played a lot of softball, played a lot of baseball, and but I pounded nails, for my recreation. So I built the house myself here on Berkey or on New Road against Meander, and it took me 3 years to finish it and move into it. And my wife and I have been here for 30 years.
That's a long time, and that's good. I mean, you know how to do those types of things around the house. Every wife would be happy to have a man like that.
Well, you know what's funny? My wife and I don't have any kids, and and I added a suite on the back of the house, an in-law suite for her father to move into, and he passed. Then I built a 3-car garage with 2 stories, so she asked me, am I finished pounding nails yet? Because there's 2 of us, and I've added onto the house 3 times, since, there's only 2 of us here. And so my response to her is always, I have one more project left in me, and that's extreme tree fort. Because I live in the woods, and I figured if you've watched that show, you gotta want an extreme tree fort next to your house.
Well, or a man cave, man tree fort, whatever works.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
So let's go to the next step. Now, Austin Town trustee. So how did that come about?
Well, that's kind of by chance story, because back in the 80s, I was looking for property in Youngstown. I really was just looking for a wooded lot to build an A-frame in. And so there would have been an opportunity to move to Youngstown if I would have actually bought a piece of property down in DeCamp that I was looking at, that you accessed off of DeCamp or off of not Canfield Road, but what's the one that comes right back up that
is that you talking about Shenley?
Shenley, exactly. Okay. I'm sorry, Shenley, yeah. And so anyway, I ended up buying the property I did, building my house. And my father had actually run for trustee in Austintown once in the 60s and once in the 70s, and never was successful at it. But he always had this plan that he threw out there that there was a lot of areas that flooded in Austintown. And he always wanted to implement, when he was running, a 10-year plan that, corrected some of the flooding problems. And, my dad was one of those guys that had a lot of patience and, and thought things out and said, one of his lines was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You've got to get started. You've got to start and implement a plan to get to the end. If you don't get started, you'll never accomplish it. So anyway, my dad passed in 91, and in 93, Jenny and I, my wife, got married. And in June of 93, we had a large rain, the 100-year rain in Austintown, and my mother's house flooded, sanitary backup. So when I went to try and help her, I found some of the old literature that my father had made when he ran for trustee, literally floating in the water in our basement.
Oh, wow.
So I thought to myself, it's a good time for me to go to my first township trustees meeting. So I took the piece of literature that talked about, fixing flooding problems, and they were from 15 or 20 years earlier that my dad had those written, and they included our house in the area that had been flooded. So I went to a trustees meeting, and needless to say, at the time, there had been a lot of water issues, so there were quite a few people there. And when I got up and spoke, I had one of the trustees, won't repeat their name, but one of them tell me that if you think you could do a better job, run for office and fix it yourself. So that's what I did. I I literally ran for trustee because they made me mad at the trustees meeting. And when I came home in June, and I said to my wife, I'm going to run for township trustee in Austintown. She said, great, what's that? 'Cause she was from Youngstown, and she'd, seen the mayor, city council, and so literally it was 2 weeks before the filing deadline ended for two trustees to elect in Austintown, and Jenny and I went out walking door to door, got petitions signed, and I walked door to door to probably 7,000 homes between the end of July and the November election. And Bo Pritchard and myself were elected in November of '93, and that's how I became a township trustee. And basically, the first thing I did was sit down with Mike Bertolacchi, who was our road superintendent, and said, do we keep a log of all the calls of people who get water problems? And he said, yes, we absolutely do. So we sat there one night in the office, in the road superintendent's office, with a map of Austintown that really encompassed the whole wall. And we started going through the addresses on the calls that had water problems and putting little post pins onto the map to log all of the different addresses of the calls that we got. We sat down and looked at it and saw where all the clusters were. And, we decided to hire Thomas Folk and Associates to, look for ways to rectify the problems in each of those areas. And we took and started working on the ones that we could fund ourselves, areas where we could, partner with different places where we needed land. One of the first ones we did was we built a retention site where the old TB sanitarium was, where the water tower is now, back behind those areas. So back then, you didn't have the subdivision that's there now, where the homes are, and we were able to utilize the property that the county allowed us to use to build retention. We partnered with the Youngstown Catholic Diocese and got property by Immaculate Heart of Mary. We got property over by Resurrection Cemetery, and we started building retention ponds in areas to hold the water back. Then we applied for every grant that we could, CDBG grants through the county. Back then it was David Engler, Ed Reese, and Frank Lordy. And I would take them on walks. Yeah, I would take them on walks through all those areas and show them where the flooding problems were happening and where the opportunity to eliminate the flooding was and through. And we got funded every year for 10 years on community development block grants to help us help ourselves, to eliminate some of the areas that had a lot of water problems.
I want to go back to this statement that someone said about, if you think you can do better than me, run. And it's what, 1 out of 50 or 100 people that you would say that to would actually run?
Well, I guess, in my younger days, I was a little bit more of a spitfire. And, so I played a lot of softball. And, back then it was a big thing. I mean, in the open division of the Steel Valley slow pitch, we played about 150 games a year.
Oh, and, wow.
So
5 games a night?
Oh, well, no. We played 5 nights a week. We played double headers on Saturday and Sunday, so we played tournaments out of town, and I used to grow a beard in the summertime, and I'd tell everybody because it made me feel mean. And, and you had to feel mean when you were playing ball because it was competitive. So nice. I think that they just got my competitive nature with respect to, drawing a challenge. And I will say that I think that the individual who said it was one of the people that beat my father for trustee in the 60s. And, and I think the challenge was put out there because he figured, I beat your old man, I'll beat you too.
Yeah, you never
took up
mess
the
with kids.
challenge. If I took
Exactly,
up
never
the
mess with
challenge.
kids. So,
So
how long were you a trustee?
I was actually a trustee for 19 years.
And
I was elected
and what
5
was
4-year terms.
and what was some of the challenges that you faced over in Austintown?
Well, I think that what you find in any position in government, that you think you have the ability and the authority and the money to do a lot more things than you really do. You think you can come in and conquer the challenges, conquer the problems, help people. When government, I was used to the private sector, where time is money, and you're on budgets, and in government, I used to equate it to that, like in zoning, I used to fight with zoning, our own zoning, and say that zoning is a process that we have to ease the people through to show them how to get through that process. It's not an opportunity to put up a gauntlet and let people, get smacked along the way. You need to, always be looking to make the process easier and less costly so that businesses can build, people can build, you can do the things you need to do and not expend as much money or as much time. Because, I spent 3 years pounding nails at night to try and move into our house. And, time is money. And when you've got a construction loan, the bank's, breathing down your neck, you're spending money. So, I looked at it from that perspective and the opportunity to try and do things to help people go through the process. And, and it's home, it's my community. People's homes were flooding while we were fixing the problems. I mean, I went over and installed backflow valves in people's houses myself, the screw-in kind, not the kind where you need to bust up the cement, but people that couldn't help themselves, and I did everything I could. I helped people cut their drywall off and put new walls at the bottom 24 inches to, help them eliminate sanitary backup smells. You just feel a sense of responsibility, especially in an elected position, to try and do everything you can, whether it's the government's responsibility or not. Because when you're going into a place where you have a senior citizen and they don't have family to help and they don't have money to do the things that need done, you do whatever you can. And I had the privilege of serving in Austintown, being my home, and how personal it was to me for a long time. And I think I did because, people knew me and, respected the fact that, we worked hard on their behalf. And, so, it was a passion for myself. And, the thing is that, remember when you're a township trustee, it's more community service than it is a political job, because you're making about 50 cents an hour and you're working full time as well. It's not a full-time elected position, and basically, you're doing it to try and help the community you live in, in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And so we're serving Austintown. So then what was your next step after that?
Well, I had the vision that being a trustee in Austintown and being a county commissioner was comparable. The county commissioners do a lot of the similar things that the trustees do, but only on a county scale. Because I'd interacted with the trustees for a long time, or the commissioners for a long time, and trying to work on, we did a lot of enterprise zone developments, bringing businesses in, tax abatements, luring different companies in over the years. So I thought that at the time that it was similar to being a trustee. Well, I ran for county commissioner in 2000. Actually, I ran for county commissioner in 2004 and lost. I lost to Anthony Trafficani. It was a vacant seat that was open, and Anthony worked for Congressman Trafficant, and I worked, Thomas Steele, and I was a trustee in Austintown, and he and I both ran for the open seat, and Anthony defeated me. So he became county commissioner, and I remained trustee in 2005. And, I didn't want to run against any incumbents. So I didn't run again for commissioner until 2013, when John McNally left to become mayor, and I ran for an open seat. So that was when I was elected county commissioner. It was in 2013.
Did you learn a lot from when you ran for the first time compared to the second time running?
Oh yeah, it's night and day. Running a campaign county-wide. When you literally, have to drive 45 minutes to get to the end of the county line. When you're going to Sebring and you're going to different areas, and so it's a huge undertaking and a huge expense. People spend close to $100,000 in a county commissioner's race. And it wasn't something that the average person could fund. And a lot of people that are unknown. It's difficult to raise enough money to be competitive. So if everyone, if you are all coming into that in a similar situation, and you can move into that spot or run for that spot on a level playing field, it makes it easier. And back in 2013, when I ran, a gentleman by the name of Buzz Pishker, he was one of the presidents of Mercy Health, and he was also, I think, the chair of the board of Aqua, Ohio at one time. And so, it was a difficult race then too. But I got elected in 2013, and, I came in at the same time in the county as Jerry Green, Pat Giannetti. They were all newly elected county office holders as well. We all came in together.
Yeah. And so when you first got elected, what did it feel? Kind of what went through your mind? Like, hey, I won. Now it's down to business.
Yeah. And well, really the thing that I took the most solace from and the most rewarding from being a trustee in Austintown is you need to know how to work on a board of three cooperatively. And I think I counted one time there was 7 or 8 trustees that I worked with, different. And you don't always have the same opinion. You don't always have the same thought process. But what you need to do is draw from each person's background, their experience, and you need to optimize their strengths and complement their weaknesses. And I think that one thing that I learned was patience and to be able to work with people on a board of 3. So when I came into the county commissioner seat, it was a very tense board, to say the least, because, there was always, not always, but there seemed to be factions. Carol Righetti came on board new when it had been Dave Lute and Anthony Trafficani and John McNally. Well, Carol was kind of the new person. And then when McNally left, I was the new person. And, the question was always that was posed to me is, oh, who are you with? Are you with Carol or are you with Anthony? And my response was always the same, is what's the topic? I'll tell you my opinion on what topic you want to know about, and then you can ask them their opinion and see who lines up where. I'm not coming in aligned with a person. I'm just coming in trying to do what's right for the largest percentage of county residents. And, and I always made sure that I tried to get everybody on the same page and working together. And I think that cooperation and the harmony that we have working together has existed for 8 years. So don't get me wrong, though. We disagree, and Carol and I probably yell at each other more than anybody. But at the end of the day, you walk out and you've agreed to disagree, or you agree to agree, and so you move forward, and in any.
Well, let me
go ahead. I'm sorry.
let me follow up with this. No, you're okay. Let me ask you this. So maybe many people don't realize how budgets work for the county. That there's a general fund, there's police funds, county funds. Could you just explain which funds are that work for the general fund and which ones are tax levied that you may see across the county? Just a little bit so people understand how that works.
Yeah, and really that's a great lead in, because one of the things that was the most challenging for me is predominantly what the main responsibility of the county commissioners is to administer the budget. That's really the largest function and responsibility that the commissioners have. And when I got in office, the thing that had been taking place countywide is that there was an on again, off again voting of the sales tax, because the sales tax was just categorized as a general fund sales tax. But in the general fund was all the departments, the treasurer, the auditor, the courts, the sheriff, the prosecutor, everything was funded from the general fund. So when that happens, then if you vote against the sales tax and it's defeated, well, the largest budgetary cost is the sheriff of all the funds coming in, because it takes over $20 million a year to operate the jail and the sheriff's department. So when I got in, the renewal was coming up of the 0.5% sales tax. So my thing that I learned in Austintown the most was from being a trustee is people do not want to vote on a general fund tax, because they think you're just going to pass out raises to people, and they don't really know what that's going to fund. So my thought process was we have to treat it like we do in the township. In the township, we had a road levy, a police levy, a fire levy. Everybody knew exactly where the money was coming from. So Jerry Green and I sat down and I gave him my thought process on that. And I said, I want to do a specific sales tax that only funds the sheriff's department, so that we can make sure that your funding stream has a permanent funding stream that's not going to be interrupted by any other budgetary constraints. So obviously Jerry Green was all in favor of it, because the sheriff's department, their people had been losing benefits, losing salaries, losing deputies, and they had faced many cuts prior to me coming on board in 2013. So we came back and sat down as a board, Jerry, Anthony, Carol, Audrey, myself, and we said, how much does 0.5% generate? We're looking at X amount of dollars. How much does 0.75% generate? Well, we're looking at X amount of dollars. Well, so it's too much, or not enough for the 0.5% sales tax, but too much for the 0.75. So we need to fund justice. What can we put in justice? 911 comes along with the first responders, the sheriff's department, the prosecutor. So that was how we categorized it, along with the coroner. And we said, this is what the Justice Fund is only permitted to fund. So we went on the ballot with the Justice Fund, identifying those specific departments that this 0.75% will directly have their money allocated to by law. And it was passed and renewed a year and a half, 2 years ago. And, and it's been in place since 2014, since the year after I got there. And, I'm probably the most proud of that because, we simplified it, like we do in township government. Township government, I still believe is the most direct representation for the people in any form of government. You have trustees that, there's 1,300 townships in the state of Ohio, and you've got trustees that make $1,500 a year, but they're doing it for the love of the community, and they have their finger on the pulse of what the different communities need, just like the city councilmen do. So it's a great form of government. It's representative, and I tried to, bring that feel to the commissioner's office so that we could fund things that people knew what they specifically were by law going to service. So the justice tax has proven to be, a good thing for everybody because it's kept our county safe and funded.
And it's been separated out of the general fund, which is good.
And in the general fund, there's 0.5%, and that funds the courts, all the common police courts, the treasurer, the auditor, the recorder, the clerk of courts. The green team, the facilities department, the purchasing, all of the ancillary departments
The whole big, right.
go into that. And what people don't realize is, we collect 7.25% sales tax in Mahoning County, and 5.75% goes to the state of Ohio. They take,
wow,
almost all of the funding from the sales tax. The county gets 1.25, 3/4 in the justice fund, and 1/2 for all the rest of the county, and then 1/4% for WRTA.
Well, that's. I don't think people realize that maybe they know that over 5% of the normal sales tax that you go out to eat or buy something, that goes straight to the state and not the county.
Right, and then the state of Ohio charges you a fee of 1% to take your money because they charge you an administrative fee to take your money.
You always gotta love that. You gotta love that administrative fee. Now let's fast forward March 2020, the start of the pandemic. We're now in October, almost 2 weeks from election. How has Mahoning County handled the pandemic? What are some of the things that you guys are doing behind the scenes, budget-wise? Has your budget hurt because of COVID? Kind of explain what's been happening behind the scenes during the pandemic.
One of the things that I'm very proud of our board for doing is, we 10 years ago, the county was borrowing money to pay their healthcare bill. And, and I used to tell them when I got there that's ridiculous. That's like paying your electric bill with your MasterCard. You've got to get out of that rut. So we literally took and we put all of our casino dollars that were given to us by the state into a stabilization reserve, sort of like the state did, with their rainy day fund. And so we created the stabilization because we were going year to year with no money carryover or very little. It's not good accounting practices, and it's not a good thing because too many of us, and a lot of us, we live from payday to payday, and if there's an interruption, it's difficult to move forward, to continue to pay your rent, your utilities, your food, like so many of us are stuck with today. And so what we tried to do is make sure that we weren't putting people in a situation like that with not providing services. So coming into this year, from 19 into 20, because we had a great bond rating from Standard & Poor's, because of our conservative spending nature, because of our reserves in our balanced budget, we had a $14 million carryover going into this year in the general fund to be able to accommodate the start of the pandemic. We obviously didn't foresee a pandemic, but
I don't think anyone did.
from a financial standpoint, we were prepared. So we were able to keep all of the offices open and operating. Not at the normal pace, but to be able to service people in need. So, we Jobs and Family Services remained open. The clerk of courts, all of the different entities that you and I would need. It was changed on how it was open, but it was open and able to be utilized. So we continued to do that. We continued to look for ways to help the county residents as well as the small businesses that were impacted. The bad thing is that we formed our task force with EMA in charge and the two health departments. The EMA director, Dennis O'Hara, Aaron Bishop, the health director from the Board of Health in Youngstown, and Ryan Tekak, the Board of Health director in the county. So the three of them chaired the committee, of which I was part of as the chair of our board, and many, many, many people, predominantly or people in leadership positions, fire chiefs, Pitzer, Frost, Hutchinson, Brown. There were so many people that were part of our group and our committee that took charge of different necessities like PPE, making sure we had an overflow place for people if we ran out of beds. We put out 750,000 pieces of PPE, through the county. We worked with businesses like Dinosaur Plastics that made face shields, 35,000 face shields he made, Bob Hendricks and Dinosaur Plastics, and gave them to Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana counties when there was no masks to be had anywhere in the U.S. So throughout that process, working with the governor, working with the Board of Health and our task force, trying to administer the PPE, the food drives, everything that this brought about with it was just a day and night undertaking. Conference calls every morning at 8, every afternoon at 4, updates day and night, governor every week. It was something that I've never seen anything like it before. Fortunately, a lot of people that are in safety forces, like our sheriff's department and our local fire departments, they're used to handling disasters, but this was one that no one could see. It wasn't like, we had a flood, let's clean up the flood. We had a fire, we had a earthquake, a tornado. It wasn't like those. We were fighting, something you couldn't see. And, so that it was so different than anything that anyone had ever experienced. It was a learning experience throughout the whole process, something that I'm very proud of the people that participated, both in our staff, in our office, and on the task force. So, we got through the lion's share of that. Well, then when the federal government decided to take and provide CARES dollars, once again, here's where they go, and they only fund counties that have excess of 500,000 people. Well, in the state of Ohio, there's only 5.
And we probably missed that threshold.
Yeah, by half.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
in the whole United States, only 5% of all the counties in the United States have in excess of 500,000 people.
So who makes that rule? That's serious.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? They were the only ones directly funded through the CARES Act from the federal government.
Well, and let's talk now. Let's move ahead. We're now in October. Okay. We've been through it. I think everyone has seen what has been done with CARES Act money, with PPE, and a variety of different stuff. What are your plans now moving forward with the county and the goals of the county in general moving forward?
Well, that's interesting because, we've right now, first and foremost, we've got to continue with the process right now because, if you look at the numbers, let's not lose sight of the fact on the COVID end of it, and I'll give you some numbers that we just got this morning from Ryan Tcac. We had him give us an overview. In August, when we were pretty much at our peak, there were 466 positive cases in Mahoning County. That was 15 a day. We had 2 deaths in August. In September, we had 11 deaths in August. In September, we had 289 cases. That was 9 a day, and we had 2 deaths. Now in October, we're at 514 year to date, and our month is only 2/3 of the way done. That's 25 a day, and we've already had 2 deaths. So right now, the focus needs to be to make sure that we're, doing the things that we're advised to do. We're getting lax and sloppy with our masks. We're starting to go back indoors because it's getting cold, and we're gathering, and we're not, social distancing. So we need to focus on those things so we can move forward. So that's still a large task that we face as a county. Right now in October, we've been able to secure money from the state that has been trickled down from the CARES Act from the federal government that the state has allocated, and our focus right now is we've provided $2.5 million to small businesses, $10,000 each. We've did over 150 businesses so far for them to be able to keep, paying their bills and paying people. Small businesses meaning less than 50 people, less than $1 million in gross sales. So we've allocated another $1.5 million into that fund, of which we have already more than 50 applicants trying to get that $10,000 funding. We just put $1.5 million into a fund for people in Mahoning County to apply for rent and mortgage assistance, and for utility assistance, up to $5,000 per family. So that program is being run by Catholic Charities and MyCap. The funding of the $10,000 for small businesses is being run by the old MedVec, Valley Partners, it's called now. So they're the ones getting the money to the people, going through the filing applications. So the people that have the connections to the community at the ground level are assisting us in every way, shape, or form, like the United Way. They're handling the food drives. We're funding the United Way for the food drives. We put $200,000 into the FOP for Mahoning County, which has collectively brought on board all of the FOPs in the county. The FOP I meant for the deputy sheriffs. They brought all the FOPs on board for the whole county, and they're going out with the $200,000 to provide money for the most needy families in each of their communities for Christmas time, for food, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. We're doing food drives, we're doing utilities. We've got the company out of, I think I had a pamphlet here somewhere, but the company out of, here it is, Springfield Township, Personal Protected.
We bought some stuff from them at YSU, so
they brought and started making the hand washing stations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we gave them, through the CARES dollars through the state, we gave them $300,000. Or no, we didn't give them $300,000. We purchased $300,000 worth of the hand washing stations and gave one to every school district in Mahoning County. So, we're trying to find the needs, the people, the opportunities, the food drives, because it's really all about making sure that the people that are living here in our county, that our neighbors and our friends and our residents, we have 235,000 people in Mahoning County, and I can tell you the majority of them are of retirement age. We're an aging county, and
top 10 in the country for retirement area.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
That was probably done maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was reading an article, and they said the Youngstown Warren regional area was one in the top 10 in retirement against Florida, against Arizona. That's why we have a lot of different older generations here that you may not see normally.
Wow, that's interesting, because so it's all about making sure that every faction of the county people are taken care of. We partnered with the Area on Aging and created the senior levy that the people voted on, and we've been able to service 20,000 seniors to help them stay in their homes. Help them by building ramps or grab bars or putting showers in or tubs in their homes, providing assistance to be able to provide meals to people that are shut-ins, that have the ability to stay in their homes. Because at the same time that's happening, the state of Ohio is shutting down the Youngstown Developmental Center, where we have people in need for special needs for disabilities. So at the same time, we purchased that facility from the state of Ohio, took it over, and have partnered with Easter Seals, Compass, Meridian Services, Alta, Flying High, to provide wraparound services in that facility. 46 acres and 100,000 square feet under roof for 10 buildings to be able to reopen. We anticipate there'll be 400 to 500 people serviced a day there, with as many as 250 employees working there a day. So we just had the ribbon cutting in October for that, for the grand opening. That's going on. The senior levy is going on. New development, what we're looking at, to move forward, not only for, to bring new business, but to open up the corridors that bring new business. We've got a $20 million sanitary sewer project going from New Middletown to Boardman to reconfigure the entire sanitary sewer district there, because right now there's been a moratorium for 10 years on that area to be able to develop. So once that sanitary project's finished, it'll open up Beaver Township, Springfield Township, Poland Township, that whole corridor. We're working with Genetti to widen to Western Reserve Road. So you'll have that entire end of the county opened up for business opportunity, new development, new businesses coming in. So, that's a huge undertaking that we've been working on for quite a while that's finally coming to fruition. We've been able to create some innovative ways with creative different opportunities. We did a TID, which is a transportation improvement district in North Jackson, that they gave us $250,000 grant from the state for us to identify the movement and the transportation end of it, to be able to expand with the Amazon and the FedEx and the Mom's Meals and Pure Foods and those entities that are in North Jackson. The Beaver Township will open up. It's got an Interstate 680. The whole key is people talk about businesses and they're in Trumbull County or they're going here or going there. But, you have to look at things from a regional standpoint. We have the Port Authority that's Trumbull and Mahoning County combined. The 6 county commissioners from the 2 counties sit on the board there and select the representatives of the Port Authority. So they're our economic development arm. They do both Trumbull and Mahoning County on behalf of both entities. So entities like Lordstown and, the LG Chem and those large facilities that are coming on board are coming to where the infrastructure is the best. We have the best transportation area, not only between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, but between Chicago and New York. The interchange in Austintown, the interchange in Lordstown, the interchange in Beaver Township, that's going to blow, expand wide open. Those are where the business expands because of the opportunity for transportation districts. So there's a lot of business expanding there. We've averaged over the last 8 years almost $250 million in new construction annually in just Mahoning County. Not even counting the regionalized area that we've had so much, probably quadruple that development.
Got a lot going on in such a short period of time, and a lot going on in the future as well, because those are a lot of projects. Let me follow up. Has COVID held up some of those projects?
Oh, big time. The Myers developments, Boardman and Austintown should have been done by now. It's still on the drawing board to be completed next year. A lot of them have pulled back on their construction because, right now with all of the companies scaled back because of COVID, the opportunity to secure the resources needed to build are very scarce. There's a shortage of steel, there's a shortage of lumber, there's a shortage of a lot of the raw materials necessary for the construction end of a lot of businesses that are already on the drawing board and anticipated to be completed at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. So now I'm going to do a quick question shoot at you. So, okay, best accomplishment in Austintown and the county.
In Austintown, obviously, curing the flooding problems. I won't say curing, but pretty much alleviating the largest areas where the most people were impacted. And it took in my dad, Charles Ditzler's plan, about 10 years. And, to impact the large areas. And the benefit that has come to the Austintown residents is, when we formed the ABC Water District, Austintown, Boardman, Canfield, when I was a trustee, when we formed that district, today, when I have been in the county, the Boardman and Canfield voted to impose a stormwater tax to help their flooding problems, but Austintown didn't, because we didn't have the impact of the flooding issues still happening today. So I'd like to believe I helped, eliminate the opportunity for more taxes to be put on the Austintown residents by focusing on the flooding problems in Austintown when I was there. And
what about in the county?
And in the county, I think the best thing is the justice tax, because when I got to the county, my thought process is that, people always do the right thing on behalf of their neighbors, their residents, and their community. But they have to believe the government's going to be transparent and do the things they say they're going to do. So you got to create that trust with the residents, and you've got to do what you say you're going to do. And the transparency we created by forming a tax that only went to justice and guaranteeing funding to the sheriffs, the deputy sheriff's, law enforcement, the prosecutor, 911, the coroner, and that being embraced and renewed twice shows that, that it's working, because, we all want our neighborhood safe, and we all want to be able to, make sure that there's not somebody breaking into our homes. So I think that from the county standpoint, I'm the most proud of.
Okay, that was best accomplishment. Now, best memory in both the county, and this will be my last question, the best memory in the county and in Austintown while in office so far. I make you think on these questions, don't I?
Yeah. Um, Probably the best memory is the same memory, two different times. And probably my best memory was in the township was in November of 1993 when I got elected, and was able to get sworn in, and have my mother and my wife with me, and know that my father had tried to achieve that. And, it was 2 years too late for him to see me get elected trustee, but I know he was there. So that was probably my best memory as a trustee, getting sworn in, and knowing that I did it on behalf of my father. And my best memory is as a county commissioner was probably my mother and my wife being there in the courthouse when when I took office, and be sworn in, and have my mother and actually I want to say that it was really at the B&O station when the results came in, and we were all gathered there, and literally the photo is my mother and my wife and myself on the front page of the Vindicator after we won in 2013 for county commissioner. And
that's probably framed somewhere.
Yeah, it actually is. It's framed in the office in my county commissioner's office. So those are things, because when you're elected, whether it's just at the township level or the county level, it's all a family affair. Because if your family doesn't have buy-in, it's going to be a miserable life. Because you are an elected official day and night, whether it's part-time as a township trustee or as a full-time county commissioner. You're elected 24/7. When it starts to rain, and they're calling for flood warnings, I'm in my truck driving around the county, looking to see where the problems are. Even though, each individual political subdivision handles most of their problems, I'm out there trying to see where they're at and make sure that when we're allocating community development block grant monies, that we're doing it for Boardman and for Canfield and for Youngstown, for the areas that have flooded in Poland, and and like the commissioners did on behalf of Austintown when I was a trustee. I want to make sure that we're at the ground level and we're communicating with the local political subdivisions, and knowing their needs, seeing their problems, and trying to help them. So it's kind of a roundabout way, but it's all about family, and trying to make sure that you treat everyone you represent like family, so that you're doing what their needs are as well.
Isn't it the norm that it's happy wife, happy life?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a true statement.
Dave, it's always a pleasure. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You're always welcome on my show.
Tony, you're a good man, and you do a nice job. And the Hope Foundation and what you do for kids and what you do for our valley, I miss being part of it this year. And like we've missed so many different things. You've done so much good for so many. You're a good person, you're a good man, and you're a good community representative. And now you're a good husband. Your wife tells me you're a good husband. So
I
good.
Hope
you're
my
a
wife
newlywed.
told you that. I hope that's true. I'm gonna have to talk to her about that when you last talked to her. But thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Check out anthonyvspano.com for more podcast interviews and videos. God bless and have a great night, everyone. Stay safe.